Hello everyone, welcome to GGN. Today's Tuesday, September 18th, 2012. I'm Darko. In this first video, we're going to cover the Middle East, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, a lot of Afghanistan news as well, as far as insider attacks go. Alright, so the first article I have for you is Towns in rebel-controlled Syria experiment with self-government. So now the global government is supporting self-government, or no governments, or basically not a nation state. That's hard to believe. The leaders of the council governing Syrian, a town in rebel-controlled Syria, decide to hold an impromptu meeting right on the footpath along its main street, a gesture of open government that would impress Canada or Sweden. So they get together with some plastic cups and pour tea, and it's a nice little shindig, right? Very democratic, and they do what? They have to set up some kind of administration to replace the party and security officials who ran the region with an iron fist under Assad's rule. So it's just kind of funny and ironic, you know. To me, it is, because what is going to replace this iron fist rule? Well, it's going to be jihadists. It's going to be Islamic extremists, like in Libya and in Egypt. So people are bitching about that in the West. Well, they're going to go into their own newspaper, their own sources that are supposed to be telling them the truth, at least, you know, according to journalism or journalistic integrity. But no, they're just feeding them pure bullshit sandwiches, right? Pure bullshit sandwiches, that somehow this is going to be any better than what they have right now, by not allowing this government or this country to determine its own fate. So they're trying to impress Canada and Sweden. Well, it's interesting that they mentioned Canada, but they did forget one country, France. Why? Well, because remember, France just August 28th said, France tells Syrian rebels, form your own government and we'll support it. And that's right, they are supporting it. They're actually aiding them openly with weapons and stuff like that. And also, what are they aiding? Well, they're aiding a jihad. The Islamist rebel Blocs and spin Syria's civil war as jihad. So I don't like calling it a civil war. For the most part, it's almost like an invasion. It's weird how people term things civil wars, like the Civil War in America. The America's Civil War, it was not a civil war, because what? Well, there was one. The South, the Confederacy, was forming their own government. They had seceded from the Union, so it was no longer a civil war. It was a war for independence. So, you know, this is what you call an invasion war right here that's going on in Syria. So it's not really a civil war. But either way, the people that are involved with it, which are a lot of them are Islamic extremists, Al-Qaeda, that are known by the West, along with mercenaries coming out of North Africa and being paid to do what they're doing, are saying that this is part of a jihad. So just kind of funny that they're talking about how they're going to create something that's opposite of what Assad has as far as the iron fist goes, when they're raising the Al-Qaeda flag and then trying to impose Sharia law in Libya. Oh, yeah, that happens to be the place where a U.S. ambassador was actually killed by the same mercenaries and terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. So I don't know. You try to figure it out. I try to figure out the rationale, but so Canada would be impressed by them creating a self-government right there in Canada's own backyard. The party Quebecois members take down Canadian flag. The newly elected separatist party in Canada's French-speaking province of Quebec takes down the Canadian flag from Parliament, vowing independence of the eastern province. Meanwhile, the new Parliament members could not escape the oath of allegiance to Queen Elizabeth II, which is a prerequisite to take office under Canadian law. Some members expressed their discontent on Twitter, saying it was a shame to be forced to swear an oath to the crown. When a people rediscover its pride and its confidence, they say, nothing, absolutely nothing, becomes impossible for it. So it kind of reminds you of what the Spanish Revolution. So they call it the Spanish Revolution, and there's other historians that refer to it as a civil war. But really, it's what? They were trying to separate themselves from the government and form their own form of government that wasn't based off authoritarianism. So just like you won't see all sorts of big NATO countries and global government countries officially recognize this, they don't recognize the Spanish Revolution and what they actually achieved there. The freedom, the prosperity that they achieved. They had double the amount of production than the companies when they had returned them back afterwards. After they shot and killed all of these people that had tried to just create their own system, they just lined them up in camps and they shot them and starved them. And in history, we didn't learn about that in history books about how you can really achieve your freedom. Yeah, so the terrorists are going to experiment with self-government, and France is going to support it. Yeah, right. That's a bunch of bullshit, right? And that's why Britain is going to supply lethal weapons to the terrorists in Syria, because they care so much about other people forming their own governments. Okay, so on to Lebanon. Syria launches airstrikes against site on Lebanese side of border. Missiles hit outside of border town. Syrian warplanes fired out 4 missiles today. This is actually yesterday along the border with neighboring Lebanon, apparently chasing rebels in the area. 3 of those missiles, however, landed inside Lebanese territory some 500 meters away from the border. There were no casualties, but there was damage to some property. Syrian rebels have regularly used Lebanon as a staging ground for operations fueling sectarian tensions, in the nation's north and bringing Syria's military closer and closer to the border, just like with Turkey. So the big news with Lebanon is what? Diplomats at U.S. Embassy in Beirut are destroying classified documents. State Department invokes emergency procedures amid anti-American protest. So they're saying there's no imminent threat to the heavily fortified Beirut embassy. They also try to say that it has to do with the protests, but maybe it has to do with there's bombs going off now in Libya from airstrikes from the rebel terrorists that they're supporting in Syria spilling over the border. In other words, it seems as though they're starting to lose control. I saw someone write in a comment board that this is their special forces and their special operations, black ops, and that getting out of control. I don't think that's what it is. I think what is happening is part of the plan. Remember, I covered this from this article from May 26, 2012, a great article from the Daily Bail that talks about creating this own specialized force that's aimed to rescue these politicians. And so this is what we're happening. This was what was planned. That's why they have drones, special forces scaling down to rescue people such as mayors, politicians, and bankers from rooftops, ambassadors. So as commandos raid Tampa, U.S. State Department demands power to declare war. So Clinton supposedly goes commando, sells diplomats as shadow warriors. It all made more sense. She had an idea to sell and defend. She described a vision in which shadowy U.S. and allied special forces worked hand-in-hand with America's embassies and foreign governments together to play a key role in preventing low-intensity conflicts, and where prevention fails, the same commando diplomat team goes on the attack. So maybe that's what Libya was all about, to allow that to happen so that they can get the go-ahead and the green lights for whatever funds and whatever legalities they needed to cross. So Clinton seemed to inform the conference that the State Department now had the unilateral authority to declare a limited state of war via expanding liaison with U.S. Special Forces. We created a new Bureau of Conflict and Stabilization Operations that is working to put into practice lessons learned over the past decade and institutionalize a civilian surge capacity to deal with crisis and hotspots. Experts from this new bureau are working closely with special forces around the world. Our diplomats also saw that the UN staff in the region could be useful partners, so they worked through our team in Washington and New York to obtain new authorities for the UN officials on the ground and then link them up directly with our special forces or special operation forces to share expertise and improve coordination. So this was part of the plan, stirring this up. Lebanon demands explanation from Iran over troops. So Lebanese president has asked for official clarifications from Iran over statements by a senior commander that they have military advisors in Lebanon. So there's a good chance that Lebanon just wants to be left alone. They don't want to be part of the U.S. They don't want to be part of Iran, and they're being torn between the both. And the U.S. is pressing Lebanon to prevent Iran Syria sanction evasions. This is from September 12th. I only included these 2 articles because when I saw this article, Lebanon demands explanation from Iran over Iranian troops in Lebanon, because you can see both countries pulling at Lebanon. U.S. is pressing Lebanon to prevent Iran Syrian sanction evasions, which they're not going to be able to do. But it just gives them the reason to either deploy troops to their embassies or do whatever they're going to do. I mean, they already have all this fortified by Turkey. Turkey's basically a Western proxy state. And then you have Iraq, again, another proxy state, but hardcore, Shiite Muslims in there. Then you have Jordan, where they just had exercise, where they have 4,000 troops. You got Israel, of course, over here, and then Lebanon. So, and like we've covered before, when you remember Wesley Clark's admission about all the countries that are going to go down, they were all those countries, including Libya and that. We have U.S. sends Marines to Yemen temporarily. U.S. troops are supposed to provide extra security for the embassy following new protests, but their length of stay seems to be open-ended to many. Again, the people here were already angry with the United States over recent drone strikes, and backing the Yemeni government that they support, the West. The United States right here in Djibouti, whatever is how you pronounce it, there's a Marine base right there, so that's probably where they came. They just jumped upon. Also in Somalia, you've recently have Al-Shabaab on the run. They've just been with Africa, Kenyan troops and stuff like that. They got that place pretty much secured right now. They just put in their new puppet president in Somalia as well. They want to control this area, these trade routes and all that, just like the Persian Gulf. So I guess what I'm saying is they feel confident now that they can start deploying troops, expanding and everything for Israel, so they can expand. And I don't think Saudi Arabia is going to have any problem with that, being that they are part of that Zionist Anglo alliance. According to the United States, it's too soon to call Libya attack an act of terror, says the State Department. They're not going to put labels on Benghazi mission attack that killed U.S. ambassador. So, but we know it is, right? Actually, the Libyan witnesses are saying the ambassador Stevens was alive when found. So there was actually regular Libyan people that helped them. Unfortunately, the people that killed him were al-Qaeda. So there was two separate things that seemed to be happening. On one hand, Libyan protesters were demonstrating against the anti-Muslim film recently protested in Cairo. On the other hand, elements of al-Qaeda planned an all-out attack on the building using live rounds and grenade launchers amid the dueling offensives. So then you have U.S. halts relief talks with Egypt over film protest in Cairo. So they're cutting off relief to Egypt, which is basically what? Relief is... It's money, it's bribe money to Egypt to not attack Israel. So was this the point? Was this the point of the Marines not getting live ammunition, not being able to protect the embassy? Was this the point to allow this stuff to just ensue and get crazy and crazy, like in Libya, where they knew, they were warned about it, they did nothing about it? Does the West and the Zionists, do they want to create this kind of breakaway Egypt to become the big threat there for Israel, to go on the preemptive attack? And was this video that was made by a, quote, Coptic Christian, was this a Zionist ploy? Was it a plan to get what? To get Christians and Muslims going at it? Like this right here, when this explosion happened, what, in 2011 in Egypt. And I only bring this up because of what happened just today. Egypt orders trial for U.S.-based Coptic Christians behind anti-Islam film. So it's all about the divide and conquer. Attacks on churches in Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Tunisia can be analyzed in the context of a Zionist scenario aimed at driving a wedge between Muslims and Arab Christians. Since the emergence of Islam, Muslims and Christians in the East have always coexisted peacefully, as Islam pays due respect to the freedom of divine faiths, especially Christianity. Zionists in the U.S. launched an all-out war on Islam. So Rodney Shakespeare, the author, says this is all part of the general Western onslaught against Islam, the object of which is to weaken all Islamic states so that none of them can ever stand up against an ever-expanding Israel. But there are other forces pushing the West to war, and they are even stronger than the usual desire to humiliate and destroy Islam. Financial and economic forces, particularly when negative, ultimately decide most things. So divide and conquer, and it's just business. But what about this? Pakistan blocks YouTube over anti-Islam film innocence of Muslims. Also in Russia set to block the entire YouTube over anti-Islam movie, says minister. Another reason is internet censorship. And finishing up with Pakistan, we'll go into Afghanistan in the next video. Pro-Taliban militants slaughter Shia pilgrims in southwestern Pakistan. Some of the comments are, the Zionists are trying to destroy Islam from within by arming and funding terrorists in Pakistan and Syria, among other places, I'm sure. It says here there are nothing but Zio-American plots to start sectarian wars in the Middle East, it makes them just that much happier to see Muslims killing one another, bringing Zio-Nazis closer to their dreams of subjugating the Muslim nations. Let's not forget initiating their expansion. Thank you.